The billionaire paced nervously across the grand marble floors of his mansion. His daughter's health was rapidly declining, and he had tried everything money could buy. Doctors, specialists, treatments from every corner of the world, it was all in vain. Time was running out, and he couldn't bear the thought of losing her. That's when he made the decision. Desperate times called for desperate measures. A nanny, an experienced one, was the answer. Someone who could care for his daughter, keep her company, help her feel safe, and perhaps, in some way, bring a bit of comfort during the dark days ahead. He didn't trust many people, but the woman he had hired came highly recommended. Her references were flawless, and her resume filled with accolades. He thought she would be just another caretaker, another temporary solution to his problems. When she first arrived, everything seemed perfect. The nanny was calm, poised, and professional, her demeanor as polished as the expensive furnishings in the home. She introduced herself with a soft, kind voice, her eyes warm as she glanced at the sick child in the corner of the room. Her uniform was neat, and she had an air of confidence, which reassured the billionaire. Maybe, just maybe, this woman could help. But something wasn't quite right. The moment the nanny stepped into the house, the atmosphere shifted. The billionaire couldn't put his finger on it, but he felt it deep in his gut. She didn't seem nervous or out of place like most nannies would. There was something in the way she carried herself, like she knew more than she let on. His daughter, too, noticed it, the slight hesitation when the nanny touched her hand, the knowing look in her eyes whenever she checked on her condition. As the days passed, the billionaire kept an eye on her, though he never spoke a word of his suspicion. His daughter seemed to warm up to the nanny quickly, which, for him, was a good sign. But then, small, seemingly inconsequential things started happening. The nanny would ask questions about his business, questions no one would ask unless they had done their homework. She would casually comment on things about his life that no stranger should know. And there were the odd little behaviors, like when she moved too quickly behind closed doors, as if she didn't want anyone to see what she was doing. The more the billionaire watched, the more uneasy he felt. It wasn't the nanny's behavior alone that disturbed him, it was her calmness. In a house full of tension, where his daughter's life hung by a thread, she seemed unaffected, almost eerily so. Was it professionalism, or was it something darker? The final straw came one evening when the nanny offered to help him with some paperwork. She took the papers without asking for permission, then sat in front of him, silently flipping through them as if she had every right to. When he asked what she was doing, she simply smiled, handed the papers back, and said, "I was just making sure everything is in order." That smile. There was something off about it. In that moment, the billionaire realized something: this woman was more than a nanny. And no matter how much he tried to convince himself otherwise, the feeling in his gut told him that something was about to change in a way he could never have imagined. He had to know more. And so, as the nanny settled into her nightly routine, he made a decision that would alter the course of their lives forever: he would install hidden cameras. And what he would discover in the coming days would leave him questioning everything he thought he knew about the woman he had hired. The hidden cameras were installed with precision, their tiny lenses almost invisible in the corners of the grand rooms. The billionaire had made up his mind. He couldn't rely on his gut feelings any longer, he needed concrete proof. He told himself it was for his daughter's safety. He needed to know if the nanny was truly the right person for the job or if there was something far more sinister lurking beneath her calm, professional exterior. As the days passed, the billionaire checked the footage late into the night, his eyes scanning every frame, every moment. At first, the recordings showed nothing out of the ordinary. The nanny was polite, caring, and attentive to his daughter. But then, one night, something changed. The footage revealed the nanny's movements after the billionaire had gone to bed. In the video, she entered his daughter's room and stood there, silently watching her sleep for what felt like an eternity. Her eyes never left the child. The camera picked up the faintest trace of a smile on her lips, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was an unsettling, almost knowing expression. The kind of smile someone gives when they're in control, when they know more than they should. The billionaire froze as he watched the video, his heart pounding in his chest. He rewound it, watching it again and again. Was he imagining it? Was this just his paranoia getting the best of him? The next day, he couldn't shake the image of the nanny standing over his daughter's bed. He watched the video again, this time paying closer attention to her subtle movements. She would often look at the child in a way that seemed to pierce through her illness, as though the sickness didn't matter to her. She appeared unaffected by the gravity of the situation, as if it were just another task she needed to complete. There were other moments too, small things he hadn't noticed before. The nanny would always ask the same questions about the daughter's condition, but never seemed interested in getting to the bottom of it. She would talk about remedies that seemed too precise, too calculated, as if she already knew what would work and what wouldn't. But why? Why did she seem to know so much? The strange behavior continued. One evening, when the billionaire entered his daughter's room to check on her, he found the nanny standing by the window, staring out into the night. She didn't notice him right away, and when she turned to face him, she had that same strange smile. "Everything all right?" he asked, trying to hide the suspicion in his voice. "Oh, yes, sir," she replied. "Just thinking. About the stars, I suppose." It was a harmless answer, but something about it felt wrong. The way she looked at him was almost too calculating. She was thinking about something, but it wasn't the stars. His thoughts began to spiral, and the feeling in his gut grew stronger. What was she really doing here? And why did it feel like she was always one step ahead of him? The next morning, he couldn't shake the unease that clung to him. He had to know the truth. He decided it was time to confront her, but he couldn't do it just yet. Not without more proof. He needed to understand the full extent of what was going on. What was she hiding? And what was her real reason for being here? As the days wore on, the billionaire began to feel trapped in his own home. He couldn't trust the nanny, yet he couldn't let her go either. The question that haunted him was clear: was she here to help? Or was there something far darker at play? He started to dig into her background, hoping to find answers. The results were unsettling. No matter how many records he pulled, how many people he asked, there was nothing. No family. No history. No real identity. She was a ghost, an enigma wrapped in layers of carefully crafted lies. The billionaire's frustration grew, but so did his fear. What was he up against? With every passing hour, he felt the walls closing in. It wasn't just his daughter's health at stake anymore. It was something much bigger, something that threatened everything he had built. And he knew deep down that the woman he had trusted to care for his daughter had a far more important mission than simply offering comfort. And it was only a matter of time before the truth would be exposed. The billionaire sat in his office, staring at the pile of papers in front of him. His mind raced with questions, each more troubling than the last. He had to know who this nanny truly was. No more distractions, no more excuses. He couldn't afford to wait any longer. The truth had to come out, no matter how dangerous it might be. The stakes had grown too high. The more he dug, the darker the path became. Every lead he followed on her background led to a dead end. No trace of her ever existed before she applied for the nanny position. No records of her family, no past jobs. Nothing. It was as if she had appeared out of nowhere. And then, there were the strange, cryptic messages, emails, phone calls, none of which made any sense. They seemed to be part of a code, one the billionaire couldn't decipher. Something was deeply wrong. Every time he uncovered a new piece of information, it only raised more questions. But what really struck him was the feeling that kept growing in his chest, the undeniable sensation that he was being watched. That he was somehow always one step behind. It was as if the nanny was leading him down a path, forcing him to uncover secrets he wasn't prepared to face. Late one night, as he continued his search through the old records and files, a strange thought struck him. What if the nanny wasn't just hired to look after his daughter? What if she was here for something much more important? His suspicion grew stronger with each passing moment. There was a pattern forming, one he couldn't ignore. The following day, he received a strange phone call. The voice on the other end was distorted, unrecognizable. But the message was clear: "We know what you're doing. Stop digging into her past." The billionaire's heart skipped a beat. He immediately hung up the phone, his mind spinning. Who was on the other end of that call? And why had they warned him? Was this all part of a bigger scheme? It was clear now that he was dealing with something far more dangerous than a simple nanny. This was a game, a deadly one, and he was the pawn. The next day, he confronted her. It wasn't a question of if he should, he knew he had to. The pieces were falling into place, and the truth was finally within reach. The nanny sat in the living room, calmly flipping through a book as though she had been expecting this moment. When the billionaire entered, she didn't even flinch. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice sharp. "What is your real purpose here?" The nanny set the book down gently, her eyes meeting his with unnerving calmness. "I'm exactly who I said I am. A nanny, here to take care of your daughter," she replied, her voice steady. But the billionaire could see right through her. Her words were rehearsed, calculated. He could sense she was hiding something, something much bigger than she was letting on. "Don't lie to me. I've checked everything. Your background doesn't exist. You don't have a past. So tell me, what is it you're really after?" The nanny didn't hesitate. She leaned forward, her expression shifting from polite to something darker, colder. "What if I told you that I'm here for a reason you'll never understand? That I'm not the one who should be feared?" The billionaire felt a chill run through him. Her words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of a truth he was unwilling to acknowledge. What did she mean by that? Who was she working for? And why did she seem so certain that he was the one being manipulated? She continued, "The truth is far more complicated than you think. I'm here because your past has come back to haunt you. Your family's legacy is under threat, and I'm the one who holds the key to saving your daughter. But there's a price you'll have to pay, a sacrifice you're not ready to make." The billionaire felt a wave of panic wash over him. Sacrifice? What kind of sacrifice was she talking about? He had already lost so much: his health, his wealth, his time with his daughter, and now this woman was telling him that even more would be demanded? He didn't know how to respond. The words felt like a punch to his gut. His mind raced, trying to process everything she had said. Could it be true? Was there more to this than just his daughter's illness? Had his entire life been leading up to this point, this moment of revelation? The nanny's eyes remained cold, unwavering. "It's not just about her illness. It's about what your family has done, and what you are about to lose." The billionaire's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know how to respond. He didn't even know if he wanted to hear the rest of her story. But he had no choice. The truth, whatever it was, had to come out. And it was clear now: the nanny was the key to everything. The billionaire sat there, stunned into silence by the nanny's words. His mind raced as he tried to digest the implications of everything she had just said. Sacrifice? His family's legacy? Was she speaking in riddles, or was there some twisted truth buried in her words? "Who are you really?" he asked again, his voice tight with disbelief. The question had escaped his lips before he could stop it, but he needed to know the full extent of her game. He had to understand the role she was playing in his life, and, more importantly, in his daughter's life. The nanny didn't answer right away. She simply stared at him with an unsettling calm, as if waiting for him to catch up to the gravity of what she was saying. Then, finally, she leaned forward, her voice low and measured. "You really don't understand, do you?" she said softly. "I'm here to protect her, just as I'm here to protect you. But not from the world you know, no, from the world you've forgotten. Your family's history, your empire, it's all part of something bigger than you ever imagined." Her words sent a shiver down the billionaire's spine. There was something in the way she spoke, something authoritative, as though she were revealing secrets she had no right to share. Secrets he never asked for, and ones he hadn't even known he needed to know. "You see, your family didn't get to where it is by accident," she continued, her gaze unwavering. "There's power, wealth, and influence, things you've fought for your entire life. But there's always been a cost. A cost you've never fully understood." The billionaire's head spun. He was losing control, and he knew it. He had been so focused on protecting his daughter, so immersed in his empire, that he had missed the bigger picture. He had never questioned how he had come to own it all, he had simply accepted it as his right, his destiny. "You were born into a web of lies, and it's time you finally understand the truth," the nanny said, her voice now tinged with something darker. "Your family has been involved in things that go beyond business, beyond simple money. There's power that's older than your empire, power that's been hidden away for generations. And now, it's all coming to a head." The billionaire's pulse quickened as the pieces began to fall into place. He had always known there was something off about his family's wealth, the way it had seemed to grow unchecked, how his ancestors had managed to maintain their power through the decades. But he never questioned it, never thought to look deeper. Now, it felt as if the foundation of everything he had built was crumbling beneath his feet. The nanny continued, "Your daughter is more than just a victim of illness. She's a pawn in a much larger game, a game that started long before you were born. Your family's past is coming back to claim what it's owed, and your daughter's health is the price." The billionaire was frozen, his mind reeling. He had never imagined that his daughter's illness could be tied to something as sinister as this. But the nanny's words made it impossible to ignore. Was she telling the truth? Or was this some sort of manipulation, a scheme to force him into making choices he didn't want to face? "What do you want from me?" he demanded, his voice hoarse with frustration and fear. "If you're here to protect my daughter, why don't you just help her? Why all this mystery?" The nanny's expression softened, but there was no warmth in her eyes. "I'm here to help her," she said. "But the help she needs isn't something you can give her. You've been protecting her in all the wrong ways. You've been living a lie for far too long." She paused, as though choosing her words carefully. "The truth is, your daughter has a gift. A gift that can change everything, but only if you're willing to make the right choices. But be warned, there's a price for everything, and the choice you make will determine not just your daughter's future, but your own." The billionaire felt his chest tighten. A gift? What kind of gift was she talking about? He had never thought of his daughter as anything more than sick, fragile, someone who needed protection. But now, with the nanny's words ringing in his ears, he began to see her in a new light. Was his daughter really part of something bigger? Was there a destiny he had been blind to all along? "I've been sent here for a reason," the nanny said, as if reading his thoughts. "But the decision is yours. If you want to save your daughter, you need to trust me. But be prepared, the path ahead will force you to confront everything you've taken for granted." The billionaire took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. The weight of the situation was suffocating. He had spent his entire life building an empire, securing his family's future, but now he realized that none of it mattered if he couldn't protect what truly mattered most, his daughter. He looked at the nanny, his mind racing, and finally spoke the words he never thought he would say, "Tell me everything. I need to know the truth." The nanny's lips curled into a faint, knowing smile. "I was hoping you'd say that." The billionaire's mind was in turmoil. What he had just heard was beyond anything he could have imagined. His family, his empire, his daughter's health, it was all part of something much bigger, something older, darker. And now the nanny had drawn him into a dangerous game he hadn't even known existed. The nanny didn't wait for him to process what she had said. She stood up slowly, her movements graceful yet deliberate, as if she had already anticipated this moment. There was no hesitation in her eyes, only a quiet confidence that unnerved him even further. "I'm here because I know what you're capable of," she said, her voice low and steady. "And I'm here to make sure you don't make the same mistakes your family made." The billionaire swallowed hard, struggling to keep his composure. "You want me to trust you, after everything you've said? You expect me to believe that my daughter's illness is part of some grand plan? That my family has been hiding something from me my entire life?" The nanny nodded slowly, her gaze unwavering. "Yes. The truth is far more complicated than you think. Your family's wealth, your empire, it was all built on secrets. Dark secrets that have been kept hidden for generations. And now those secrets are coming back to collect what they're owed." He took a step back, his hands trembling slightly. "What do you want from me? I've already lost everything I hold dear. My daughter's health is slipping away from me, and now you're telling me that there's more at play here? What do you want from me?" His voice broke with the weight of his own frustration. The nanny's expression softened, but only just. "I'm not your enemy," she said. "I'm here to help you understand what's happening. To help you see the truth before it's too late. But you have to be willing to let go of the illusion of control. You've been living in a bubble, thinking that money and power can protect you from everything. But they can't. Not from this." The billionaire's mind reeled. What was she saying? He had spent his entire life building his empire, accumulating wealth and power, thinking that it would shield him from the world's dangers. But now, the nanny was telling him that everything he had worked for was built on lies, that there were forces at work beyond his understanding. "Why didn't you just tell me this from the beginning?" he demanded, his voice rising with anger. "Why all the games? Why make me dig through your past, only to find out that I was part of something I didn't even know existed?" The nanny looked at him with a mixture of pity and resolve. "Because you weren't ready. You wouldn't have believed me if I had told you the truth from the start. And now, you're being forced to face it, whether you're ready or not. The clock is ticking." Her words hit him like a punch to the gut. His entire life had been a lie. Everything he thought he knew, his family's wealth, his daughter's health, his future, was all part of a larger, twisted narrative. A narrative that he had never asked for, never even suspected. "I don't know what to do anymore," the billionaire whispered, his voice trembling with the weight of his own fear. "What if I've already lost her? What if I've lost everything and there's no way back?" The nanny placed a hand gently on his arm, her touch surprisingly warm, considering the chill in the air between them. "It's not too late," she said softly. "But the decisions you make now will determine whether you save your daughter, or lose her forever." He looked at her, his mind in turmoil. The woman he had hired to take care of his daughter, the woman who had seemed so calm, so collected, was now his only hope. She was the one holding the key to saving his daughter, but she was also the one who had opened his eyes to a world he had never known, a world filled with secrets, lies, and dangers far beyond his understanding. He had no choice but to trust her. "What do I need to do?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The nanny nodded, her face softening with a hint of approval. "You have to let go of your pride, your ego, and trust in the process. There are forces at play here that you cannot control. But if you accept the truth and make the right choices, there's hope. For you, for your daughter, for your family." He exhaled slowly, a heavy weight lifting off his shoulders. For the first time in weeks, he felt as if he might have a chance to save his daughter. But at what cost? The nanny's eyes locked with his, as if she could see straight into his soul. "This isn't just about saving her, you know," she said softly. "This is about saving you. From the lies, from the darkness, from everything you've been running from. The billionaire didn't respond. What could he say? He didn't know if he was ready to face the truth, but he knew one thing for certain: he was running out of time. And if he didn't act now, it would be too late. The billionaire's heart raced, his thoughts spinning in every direction. The nanny's words echoed in his mind like a constant drumbeat, each one hammering into him the weight of what was to come. This isn't just about saving her, she had said. This is about saving you. But saving him from what? From his family's past? From the empire he had built on what now felt like a foundation of lies? He wasn't sure. All he knew was that the path he was on now was leading him into a place he had never imagined. A place where nothing made sense, where he had to decide whether to trust a woman he barely knew or let everything he had ever known crumble. The nanny had promised him that there was still hope, hope for his daughter, hope for himself, but at what cost? He couldn't shake the feeling that the price would be far steeper than he was willing to pay. As the days passed, his daughter's condition continued to worsen. The treatments that had once shown promise seemed to be failing. She grew weaker with each passing day, and the billionaire could feel his control slipping away. No matter how many doctors he brought in, no matter how much money he threw at the problem, nothing seemed to work. The nanny, however, remained unwavering in her calm. She would quietly check on his daughter, speak softly to her, and monitor her condition with a level of precision that both reassured and unnerved him. It was clear that she knew something he didn't. She was calm in the face of his daughter's suffering, too calm. But he could not ignore the feeling that, in some way, she was the only person who truly understood the situation. One evening, the billionaire sat in his study, alone with his thoughts. The weight of the decision before him was suffocating. He had already seen the cost of living in ignorance. He had trusted in money, in power, in control, and now everything was slipping through his fingers. But what if there was a way to reverse it? What if the nanny was telling the truth about his family's legacy, about the role his daughter played in it all? He couldn't afford to wait any longer. The nanny walked into the room, her steps silent as she approached. "You've been avoiding the truth," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "You've been afraid of what you might have to do. But now, you must face it head-on." Her words cut through him like a knife. She was right. He had been avoiding it. Avoiding the choices he would have to make. But now, as his daughter's health deteriorated before his eyes, he knew there was no turning back. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," he whispered. "I don't know if I can do what you're asking." The nanny sat across from him, her gaze unwavering. "You don't have a choice. The truth will come out, whether you're ready or not. But you can decide how you face it." The billionaire clenched his fists, his knuckles white. He had spent his whole life building his empire, surrounding himself with people he could trust, creating a world where he was untouchable. But the nanny had shattered that world in a matter of days. She had shown him how fragile it all was. How everything he had built, his wealth, his control, his status, was nothing compared to the forces that were at play. "You must let go of everything you thought you knew," the nanny said. "The past has its grip on you, and until you release it, you'll never be free." He closed his eyes, trying to block out the overwhelming wave of emotion that threatened to swallow him. His family's past, his empire, his daughter's health, they were all intertwined in ways he couldn't fully understand. The more he thought about it, the clearer it became: he was standing at the edge of a precipice. One wrong move, and everything would fall apart. But if he didn't act now, if he didn't make a choice, he would lose everything. His daughter, his empire, and everything he held dear. A moment of silence passed between them, and then the nanny spoke again, her voice softer now. "It's not too late. You can still save her, but it will require a sacrifice. A sacrifice of your pride, your power. You must be willing to let go of the things that no longer serve you." The billionaire sat in silence, the weight of her words pressing down on him. He had always believed that control was the key to everything. That power was the answer to all his problems. But now he was faced with the truth: there was no power in control. Not anymore. His daughter's life was slipping away. And in that moment, he realized that the true power wasn't in wealth or influence, it was in the ability to make the right choices, no matter how difficult they were. "I'm ready," he finally said, his voice steady. "I'll do whatever it takes to save her." The nanny nodded, a small, knowing smile crossing her face. "Then let's begin." The billionaire's heart beat loudly in his chest as he prepared for what was to come. He had made his decision, he was ready to face the truth. But as he walked alongside the nanny toward the next step, a strange calm washed over him. It was as if a weight had been lifted, but also replaced with an even heavier burden. The nanny led him to a small, hidden room deep within the mansion, far from the prying eyes of the world. It was a room he had never noticed before, despite years of living in the house. Inside, the walls were lined with old books and scrolls, each filled with histories and secrets that seemed too ancient to belong to the modern world. On the desk in the center of the room lay a small, ornate box. It looked like a relic from another era, its craftsmanship exquisite but worn from time. "This is the key to everything," the nanny said, her voice solemn. "Inside this box lies the answer to your daughter's illness, and your family's past." The billionaire felt a chill run down his spine as he stared at the box. This was it, the moment where everything he had learned in the past days would culminate. The nanny had told him it would require a sacrifice, and as he stood before this mysterious box, he knew that the cost would be high. But what choice did he have? His daughter's life was at stake. He couldn't turn back now. With trembling hands, he opened the box. Inside, nestled between layers of velvet, was a small crystal, glowing faintly with an inner light. It seemed almost alive, pulsing gently as though it had its own heartbeat. The billionaire reached out and picked it up, feeling its warmth. The moment his fingers touched the crystal, a flood of images filled his mind, visions of his ancestors, of long-forgotten promises, of power and betrayal. The crystal was a part of something far larger than he could have ever imagined. It was the source of his family's wealth, the reason for the empire he had built. But it was also the cause of his daughter's illness. The crystal had been hidden for generations, passed down from one heir to the next, feeding off the power that had been built around it. But the more it had been used, the more it had taken from the family. And now, it was draining his daughter's life force. The realization hit him like a thunderclap. His family had built their fortune on this crystal, and in doing so, they had cursed themselves. Each generation had paid the price, and now, it was his daughter who was suffering. She had been born with the power to undo it, but only if he was willing to give up everything he had worked for, his wealth, his power, and his empire. "What do I do?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The weight of the decision pressed down on him like 1,000 tons. Could he really give up everything? The nanny placed a hand on his shoulder, her expression grave but compassionate. "You must choose. If you want to save your daughter, you have to let go of the crystal. Let it go, and it will release the hold it has over her. But you will lose everything. Your wealth, your legacy, everything." He looked at the crystal, feeling its power coursing through him. It was as if it was calling to him, begging him to keep it, to use it, to hold on to the empire that had been built on its energy. But deep down, he knew what he had to do. The choice was clear. His daughter's life was more important than anything else. She had already paid the price for his family's greed, and he would not let her suffer any longer. He held the crystal up in front of him, feeling the energy shift within him. The power that had once felt like a gift now felt like a curse. With one final breath, he crushed the crystal in his hand. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the ground beneath his feet seemed to tremble, and a wave of energy swept through the room. The crystal shattered into 1,000 pieces, its light dimming until it was nothing more than dust in his palm. At that moment, the billionaire felt something he hadn't felt in years: relief. The weight of his empire, of his family's legacy, of all the decisions he had made, was gone. And with it, so was the hold the crystal had over his daughter. He rushed back to her room, his heart pounding in his chest. When he saw her, he could hardly believe his eyes. She was awake, her eyes bright and full of life. The color had returned to her face, and her breathing was steady and strong. For the first time in months, she smiled at him. "I'm better, Daddy," she whispered, her voice soft but full of hope. "I feel better." Tears welled up in the billionaire's eyes as he knelt beside her. His heart swelled with gratitude. He had saved her. He had given up everything, but in return, he had gained what truly mattered: his daughter's health, her future. The nanny stood in the doorway, watching silently. The billionaire turned to her, his voice full of emotion. "Thank you," he said, his words barely escaping through the lump in his throat. "I couldn't have done it without you." The nanny gave him a small smile. "It was always your choice. You had the power to change things, but it was you who made the decision. You learned the most important lesson of all." He looked at her, confused. "What lesson?" She stepped back into the shadows, her form fading as though she were part of the world itself. "The lesson that true power isn't in wealth or control. It's in letting go. Sometimes, to save what you love, you must give up everything." And with that, she was gone. The billionaire sat by his daughter's bedside, knowing that life would never be the same. But he had learned the most important lesson of all, that love, sacrifice, and trust are the true sources of strength. And no empire, no amount of wealth, could ever replace what truly mattered.